I surrender to the Almighty my mind, speech and body. Vanakkam. We are reading the book called Thirukkural, written by Thiruvallur. This is a book on aram and it is given to us by our Tamil ancestors. Aram is nothing but the order in nature, and this book is structured in a way that follows our life's journey. It teaches us how to form attachments in our lives as we begin our journey with our life partner, and also how to let go of attachments in the later stages of our life as we move towards a higher purpose. Now, in order to understand Thirukkural, we are following Parimmal Azhagar's commentaries. Usually, commentators do not write a separate introduction, but Parimmal Azhagar breaks that norm and he writes a preface for his commentaries. This is called as the Urai Payiram, and this is what we are reading currently. Now, in the very first line of the Urai Payiram, Parimmal Azhagar promises the readers that Thirukkural will show the way to Padam and Veedu, which are higher states of existence. Aram is defined as Vidittana Seidal and Vilakkiyadai Ozhittal, which means do the things as prescribed and avoid the things that are prohibited. This is given to us by Nitars, or those who have completely renounced all the attachments in their life. These are things that we have already seen, so I am only giving a brief overview. The Varnashrama Dharmam is necessary to specify the aram for an entire society where people with different skill sets and age groups live together. So, the aram for each person is nothing but the do's and don'ts prescribed for his or her varnam and ashramam. There are three parts or branches of aram. They are ozhukkam, Vazhakku and Thandam. What is ozhukkam? Ozhukkam is when one follows the aram or the do's and don'ts continuously in their life, and when followed over a long period of time, it is called as ozhukkam, and this is where we left off in the last video. So today we will see the other two parts of aram. Now before that, I keep saying that Thirukkural has three big sections called Paal. The first Paal is called as the Arathu Paal, and that talks about the aram. The second Paal is the Porutpaal, that talks about the fundamentals of wealth creation, and finally there is the Inbathu Paal that talks about pleasure. Now we need to understand why this ordering is there, why the Arathu Paal is placed first and then the Porutpaal and then the Inbathu Paal. There is a word called Varisai. Varisai in Tamil, it means ordering. For example, one way to place books in an order would be to stack them one on top of the other with the big books on the bottom and the smaller ones on top. This is an example of Varisai. Or when we want to arrange people, we could make them sit according to their height, from short to tall or tall to short. This is also an example of Varisai. So any kind of logical ordering is called as Varisai. In the Tamil society, the Varisai was given a lot of importance. What I mean by that is, people who were educated and followed ozhukkam in their lives were honored and respected more than the people who didn't follow aram and ozhukkam in their lives. For instance, when there is a social gathering like a wedding, an educated person who is known to be following ozhukkam in the society would be seated in the front row. It was a sign of respect. Someone who stood by their aram was given more importance. A former convict or an ex-felon, on the other hand, would not be given so much respect and would probably be placed in the last row. And this kind of ordering or varisai was preferred in the society. But why was this done? Is it fair to treat people this way? This was done so that the younger generation people would look up to their elders as the role models. The younger generation could aspire to gain that respect and be encouraged to follow aram in their lives. Something like, I want to live my life like that and be respected like that. So in order to aspire a whole generation of people, the Varisai was encouraged in the society. I will give you a good example of how this Varisai was favored in the society. Purananooru. Purananooru is the classical Tamil poetic literature. The Purananooru is sometimes called as the Puram or the Purappattu. It's a collection of 400 poems about kings, wars and public life, and it has been a great source of information on the political and social history of the ancient Tamils. In one such poem, the life of a poet is described. The poets in the earlier times, they were intelligent and learned people, and they would go to various kings to exhibit their talents and be rewarded for their skills. They used to go looking around for learned and generous kings to display their poetic talent and be awarded for the skill. This was their lifestyle. Wherever they went, they expected the king to be intelligent enough to identify a good poet from the bad one and reward them according to their skills. It would cause great worry to a poet if a king failed to do this and treated all the poets as equals. If the king just made all the poets to stand in a queue and gave them all equal gifts, it would bring great worry to the poet, as it did not honor the best talent. And this sentiment is recorded in a poem in Purananooru, where the poet says, Varisaikku varundum iparisil vaalkai. It means we are poets who fear the queues or the lines that are formed to receive an equal distribution of an award or a prize. So I found this really interesting. Let me elaborate on this one particular poem. There is a backstory. There were two kings, Nalankilli and Nedungkilli, and they were arch enemies. One day, a poet called Ilantattan from Nalankilli's territory goes to Nedungkilli's territory to show his talents, because that's what poets used to do. So when he entered the foreign land, some of the local people thought that he was a spy from the neighboring country, and they ran to the king and expressed their doubts and concerns. On hearing these concerns, the king Nedungkilli got suspicious and decided to punish the alleged spy. In the same court, there was another wise poet by the name of Thirukkural, and he trembled on hearing the king's decision. He explained to the king that the poets are harmless people who desire peace, and that's when he composes this song to explain the life of a poet. Thirukkural says, O king, there are a lot of generous people in this world who will reward good talent when they see one. The life of a poet is to go in search of them. We are the birds that seek the fruit tree. But the amount of hardships we undergo in this pursuit is not by any means little. We have to cross many forests, and yet we walk without complaining. We go to the nations where such generous people live, and there we sing the might of those souls with our honest words and rejoice in accepting whatever gifts they give us. And even those gifts, we do not keep those gifts for ourselves or save it for the future. We share them with everyone and give them to those who ask, without ever denying. The desires of the poets are universally one and the same. We desire to make our talent known to the world, and we expect the world to give the respect and reward it rightfully deserves. We value those who will distinguish a good talent from the rest, and we fear a king who does not have that ability to identify a good talent and who would just treat us as equals to the rest. This is our life. We never think evil for others. Even if someone challenges us, we will defeat them with our intelligence and make our opponents bow their heads in shame, and we will walk majestically with our heads held high. O king, the poets live by trusting the kings like you, who are full of great fame and wealth. Please do not doubt or punish this young man who is one of us. So I will recite the Tamil verses. Valliyor padarndu pullin pogi, nediya ennadu, suram pala kadandu, vadiya naavin, val aangu paadi, பெற்றது மகிழ்ந்து சுற்றம் அறுத்தி ஓம்பாது உண்டு கூம்பாது வீசி வரிசைக்கு வருந்தும் இப்பரிசில் வாழ்க்கை பிறர்க்கு தீது அறிந்து அன்றோ இன்றே திறப்பட நன்னார் நாண அண்ணாந்து ஏகி ஆங்கு இனிது ஒழுகி நல்லது ஓங்கு புகழ் மண்ணாள் செல்வம் எய்திய நும்மோர் அன்ன செம்மலும் உடைத்தே. So the point here is the Varisai played a major role in the Tamil society. Varisai was one way to distinguish, honor and reward good behavior, and equality was not always favored. So ordering helped to identify something as the best. So now coming to our Thirukkural, how is this Varisai relevant to Thirukkural? See, here we have the book in three big sections, the Arathuppal, the Puruppal and the Inbathuppal, and these three are arranged in this Varisai for a reason. Now since aram is placed first, it looks like it must be more important than the other two. But why? We might wonder, why not read the Porutpal first as it relates to wealth, or why not start with the Inbathupal which talks about pleasure? After all, we are in the quest of happiness, aren't we? Why do we have to start with the Arathupal first? The reason is this. See, we are not just the body alone, we are the intelligence inside this body, and this body is only an instrument. That intelligent entity inside this body is called as the Uyir. The body will be destroyed one day for all of us. The journey of this body ends at our physical death, but the journey of the Uyir continues to the next birth by taking a new body. This is something that we have seen already. Now, Parimiyalagar says that the aram which we will be learning will help the Uyir to live a peaceful life not only in this birth but in the next birth too. Also, it is possible to reach Padam and Veedu when we hold on to aram. The word Immai is a Tamil word, it means in this birth, and the word Marumai means in the next birth, Marumai, and Veedu or Mukti is our final destination. The aram will help a person not only in Immai, that is this birth, but also in Marumai and help us to reach Veedu, our destination. The porul or the wealth will help us in Immai, that is in this birth, to live a comfortable life. We can live a great life with money. And if we do good activities in this birth using our wealth, then that could help us accumulate something called Punyam, which will give us a better life in the next birth or the Marumai. But the wealth alone cannot help us to reach Veedu. The third part, which is the Inbam or the pleasure, will only help us in this birth or the Immai. It can give us happiness in this birth, that's all. It cannot help us to secure a good next birth or help us to reach Veedu. So, because the aram is useful for Immai, Marumai and Veedu, three things, it is given more importance and placed first. The porul or the wealth is helpful for Immai and Marumai, two things. Therefore, it is placed second. The Imbam or the pleasure has used only in Immai, in this birth, only one thing, and so it is placed third. So, this is the reason behind the Varisai of the three Paals, the aram, porul and Imbam. Also, it is important to note that if we learn porul and Inbam without understanding the aram, then such an education will pave way for destruction in a society. No good can come out of porul and Inbam without the underlying principles of aram. In fact, it is said that we will suffer in the presence of wealth and pleasure if we do not understand aram. The entire society will suffer. And therefore, this Varisai is extremely important. As we go into the depths of this book, it will become clear why. See, even in defining the aram, we first say the Vidittana Seidal, which means things to do first. Only then we say Velakiyade Odittal. This Varisai is also there for the same reason that the most useful and important things are said first. And most books on aram follow this order. Now, coming back to the aram. Aram, I said, has three parts, ozhukkam, Vazhakku and Thandam. We know what ozhukkam is. Today we will move to Vazhakku. Vazhakku means a case or a dispute. Whenever we have some rules to follow, then there will always be rule breakers. This is unavoidable. We cannot have a perfect society where everyone is perfect. So, there will be people who will break the aram that is specified for their varnam and ashramam. And when that person does not accept that he or she has made a mistake, a dispute arises. So, now we have two people and one person has broken an aram and lies about it. And both are respected people in the society. Then how do we find out who made a mistake? We need to find out who is the wrongdoer and who is lying. So, now we have a dispute or a case and this is called as Vazhakku. Actually, this is where the science of Tarkam developed. Tarkam, we have seen this term earlier, it is a branch of science which studied the measurement of truth. There are various techniques, logical techniques to find out the truth in a statement, and those techniques are called as pramanam. And using the pramanams, we can find out who spoke the truth and who lied. There was a court of law and there were learned people who acted as lawyers and judges and they resolved the dispute or the Vazhakku. Now, Parimiyalagar says that there are 18 different types of Vazhakku, that is 18 ways in which a dispute may arise. For example, someone loans some money to a friend and the friend spends all the money and denies taking a loan, then a dispute may arise. So, like that they identified 18 major types of disputes. Now, a question may arise, why is Vazhakku considered as a part of aram? See, if people were to lie and there was no mechanism to find out the truth, then the aram cannot be upheld in a society. So, the process of finding the truth is also considered as a part of aram. So, ozhukkam is the first branch and Vazhakku is the second branch. The third branch or the third part of aram is called as Thandam. Thandam. Thandam means punishment. Dandanai is also a Tamil word and it denotes punishment. And this is also used to put the people back on the path of aram. But why punishment? Is it because the judge wants to show off her knowledge or wants to feel good to exercise her power? No. Punishment is given with the intention of pulling the wrongdoer from the wrong path and putting them back on the path of aram. For example, we know that there are 4 ashramams, the brahmacharyam, the grihastham, the vanaprastham and the sannyasam. Now, a person in the sannyasam ashramam is expected to not have any attachments and is expected to love all forms of life equally. That is the definition of sannyasam. Such a person is called as nitar, and they are people who have renounced all the attachments and they are usually highly respected in a society. They live a very simple life. There are some very severe sannyasis who only eat the fallen berries or the dried barks of the trees because they don't want to hurt any form of life. Clearly, such a life is not for all of us, but there are some people for whom such a higher state of life is natural. Now, suppose if a person calls himself as a sannyasi and is also attracted to wealth or women or enjoys the taste of meat, then clearly something is wrong. And now we have a case of dispute. See, if you want to live with attachments, you call yourself as a grihasthan or a householder and live happily. Calling oneself as a sannyasi and living the life of a grihasthan is cheating and calls for dandam. So, the dandam or the punishment is also used to put people back on the path of aram and therefore it is considered as a branch of aram. What kind of punishments were given? Parimalaizhagar explains that there are books written by learned people even before their lifetime, books that discusses the appropriate punishment for the specific misdeeds, and so the judge is expected to give punishment as given in these books, nothing more, nothing less. So, dandam means giving punishment as per the accepted books for those who slipped in aram with the intention of bringing them back to the right path. Now, to conclude everything, we know that aram is the order in nature, and when we get into the aram for the human lives, we see that aram has 3 parts, the ozhukkam, Vazhakku and Thandam. Ozhukkam is following the do's and don'ts for a long period of time in our lives. When someone breaks from their ozhukkam and lies about it, then we have a Vazhakku and we need to find out the truth. When the wrongdoer is identified, the Thandam or the punishment is given to bring the person back on the path of aram. And we have also seen why ozhukkam is more important than the Vazhakku and Thandam. Now, without Parimalaizhagar, it would be impossible for us to understand these things on our own from the Thirukkural. That is why Parimalaizhagar is considered instrumental in understanding Thirukkural. Okay, now if Thirukkural is a book on aram, then does it talk about ozhukkam, Vazhakku and Thandam? That is a question that we will explore in the next video. For now, I shall end here. Thank you all for listening. Nandri, Vanakkam.